Welcome back to another Drew Rants video. Today we're going to be talking about my predictions and how they went. We saw the race. Hopefully you have too. If not, go watch the highlights on YouTube. There's going to be a card linked above this side right here. If you have seen the race, I can tell you that it was pretty cool. Right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the race. There was a lot of overtaking in the race. There was a lot of maneuvering that was taking place. There was a lot of different strategies. Max, for example, had a spin. And starting in P2, by the way, completely blew me out of the water because I was not no one was expecting Max to have a P2 qualifying session. We all know he's really good at qualifying, but we never saw him getting to the point where he'd be able to get to P2. But to see him spin and then do a 360, which he says is intentional. I'm assuming it is because it looked badass. And then they decided to box early because obviously the tires are shot when you do a spin like that. I don't think he sustained too much damage, and he worked his way all the way back up to P5, so for sure he had a great race. I do think that someone else deserved the driver of the day. And then you had Lando Norris in the lead for a little bit, and Lando had a bad pit stop, which actually opened the door for the championship leader, Kimi Antonelli, to set a record as the first driver to win, I think it's 3 in a row, and win them from pole. Really amazing from him. Also, we had Oscar Piastri pass Leclerc on the final lap. We also had Leclerc spin out right after the pass, after slamming both his front tire and his rear tire, and I think breaking his axle. But he still got points out of it, so for Leclerc, it's a win either way. So the McLaren 2-3, I don't think many people saw that coming either, but I did say in the previous video that there was a shot with McLaren's A+ upgrade packages that they've brought the last 3 years that they could snag some poles. Now let me tell you, they snagged the 2-3 spot and they went 1 and 2 in the sprint race. Hey, that's a great prediction right there. So let's get to what you're really here for, which is how did Drew do in his predictions? I did pretty good. Okay, I did pretty good. So let's get right into it. The first one was my bold prediction. For my bold prediction, I had Oscar Piastri winning the race.
I'm going to imagine, yeah.
Obviously, he didn't win the race, but Oscar Piastri did end up getting P3. He qualified P7, by the way, and then made his way up to P3, which is extremely impressive. I would take this as a very solid win. He didn't actually win it, so I can't take the point. But going from P7, passing Russell, passing Hamilton, passing Leclerc, I mean, that is really spectacular stuff from Piastri, getting all the way up there, and he is definitely my driver of the day. Was it a bad prediction? Not really. It was a pretty good prediction, but how good would that timing have been if I had just released the Oscar Piastri video and then Oscar wins the next race? Now let's talk about my biggest loser prediction, George Russell. Now my specific criteria for Russell was that he would not get a podium this week. And if George Russell did not get a podium, then he would be considered the biggest loser. He didn't get a podium in the sprint or in the actual race. But overall, George Russell got to be the biggest loser of the week because, once again, we have Kimi Antonelli increasing that lead by quite a bit. He's almost a full race win ahead of George Russell at this point. Granted, we're only 4 races into the season, but rather than the typical total, there's 2 less races, so points matter a lot more here. And that gap getting bigger is going to give George Russell an even bigger obstacle to actually overcome. So I think right now, George Russell's got to be the biggest loser of the week. I get a point for that because that was my prediction. Him not making the podium, technically I should get double points because he didn't make it in the sprint or the race. But either way, great prediction from me there. So now let's talk about my next prediction, which was the championship leader prediction. This take is close. It was extremely close because Kimi Antonelli qualified in first, which is what I said he was going to do. I said he was going to qualify in first and he was going to finish in second. My prediction goes out the window because McLaren had a slow pit stop. Now that's rare because McLaren has had very, very good pit stops since last year. I mean, their pit stops were unbelievably quick. I don't think their pit stop was egregious. I think it just gave the necessary tenths of seconds to Antonelli to catch up and then pass Norris, and then Norris wasn't able to catch up with Kimi by the end of the race. This kid is exceptional. I'm really glad that I put him in the national emergency category, and maybe I'm speaking too soon, but my God, this kid looks good. I mean, it is just unreal how good he looks, and the pace that he has in qualifying is really exceptional. Kimi Antonelli winning the race. I don't get a point for this prediction, but still very, very close, because if Lando would not have had a bad pit stop, I'm pretty confident that Lando would have won. Lando believes that he would have won without that pit stop, and he said it many times. So not a bad prediction at all. Now for my unique prediction, which is that Hamilton was going to outpace Leclerc. Now, this is like a big reach here, but he could have. In theory, Hamilton could have made a podium statement here had he not had damage in the first lap of the race.
Leclerc got damage.
He said afterwards he wasn't able to do anything. It was kind of obvious. I mean, he had very little pace in comparison, but there's not much you can do when you have damage on your car. He had a clash with Verstappen. He also had a collision with Colapinto. And obviously, I don't get a point here either. I think it's just unfortunate the way things played out for him. I think that he might have been able to put something on if he had actually been able to stay in the race. So for my midfield prediction, which was Arvid Lindblad is going to score points. This was also a really crazy take to make, because Arvid Lindblad had not raced on this track ever. So maybe I was reaching a little bit.
He's reaching! He's reaching! What?
He really didn't come close either session to actually scoring points, but the Racing Bulls just didn't have a very good race in the Miami GP, either one, really. So it's just kind of the way this one went. I mean, it was kind of surprising, the same thing for Haas, right? I mean, you thought that Haas would probably be pretty strong here too, and they didn't have the same pace either. I wouldn't say this is a bad take. I just think that it was a gamble for sure, and I think he'll do much better next year. Now we have the backfield take. I got to pull out the hat of shame for this one. Okay, I got to pull out the hat of shame, because Williams double point scorers when I said that they were going to finish P15, P16 like they have been. So you really can't complain if you're a Williams fan. I almost feel bad. I mean, I'm putting on the hat of shame right now because of how bad this take really was. They both scored points. Probably makes Williams fans very, very happy to see that their car is no longer really super heavy. I mean, I think they finished P4, P5 on the day. Got to give my props to Williams, and I'm very happy to see him doing well, but I didn't get the point for this one either. Now for my best take of the race, which is ironically the DNF prediction, I said that Liam Lawson would crash and have to leave the race, but it wouldn't be his fault. The real question is, what happened to Liam Lawson? Liam Lawson's gearbox had a problem. It malfunctioned, and then his car shut off, and allegedly that's why he ran into Gasly. I think this was just entirely out of Liam Lawson's hands, and I think it was unfortunate. And I thought he was going to be out in lap 1, and I was about to jump out of my seat because I was like, this guy's going to crash. But he ended up DNFing anyway, and poor Pierre Gasly. I mean, he had a full flip of a car. That was just awful.
And here we go to the inside. Wow, Pierre Gasly flipped over.
I felt really bad for him because he was going for a streak. I mean, Pierre Gasly would have been in the points again. He would have been P10 at least. He probably would have finished in front of both of the Williams cars. You got to feel for him, but at the same time, hey, give me double points there, because my prediction was like a dart at the bullseye. That was beautiful. Transitioning off of my predictions, there was also something interesting that happened in this race. Hadjar crashed and had a pretty bad crash out, I would say. Typically, Hadjar has been within 1 or 2 tenths of Max when qualifying, and then he was, I think, close to 8 tenths off of Max. That's a big deal. And that means a lot to Hadjar, because I'm sure he's taking that personally. But this is not the first time we've seen this. Also, one of the key things to take away from this race is that Max Verstappen has a good car now. I wouldn't say it's on par with Mercedes, McLaren, or Ferrari. I think it's getting there. I think it might be close. Obviously, Mercedes is still waiting for the next race to release their upgrade package, where they're going to have way more upgrades coming in Montreal. So that's going to be interesting. I think a 1-2 for Mercedes' future may be very, very prevalent there. I think it'll be a McLaren and Mercedes battle next race. But for this race, we saw some really great stuff from Max. Even with the spin, even with the pace, he was still able to make it up. And he ended up P5 though. Hopefully we'll be able to see a 4-way title fight. I would love to see a little bit more from Red Bull here. Ferrari is going to have to get their act together a little bit more. I think Ferrari needs to get their pace together. I think McLaren just needs to continue to convert. They need to make minor specific improvements to the car in order to be able to surpass Mercedes. and it looks like it'll be a Mercedes McLaren fight, but you never can count Red Bull or Ferrari out at this point. Thank you all for watching. Make sure if you're still here to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me if you think I deserved a point or more points for any of my predictions, and let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe as well, because we're going to be coming out with a new video where we're going to talk about Max Verstappen's championship and if he let Lando win. Oh, and Aston Martin and Cadillac were there too.